Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. Now, I'm going to share with you a little bit of my past life, and it's very relevant to the story I'm going to cover here. As most of my older subscribers know, I used to work at Barclays Bank in Estcourt, and it brings back very fond memories of my time as a young man. I was in my early 20s at the time. And at Barclays Bank, I worked as the marketing fellow. I used to interact with the public, and I used to do a whole range of things, from sell insurance to open up bank accounts, or all that sort of stuff that a marketing fellow does at a bank. And on this particular day, a day I will never ever forget, this beautiful woman walked into the bank, and she came into my cubicle and sat down and told me that she'd just moved back to Estcourt. And when I looked at her, there was just this instant connection. It was just like zap. I was in love. I mean, it was just, it's one of those incredible things that happens in your life, and it doesn't happen very often, believe me. As an old fart, I can tell you, you can count the number of times something like that happens on one hand. And that's if you're lucky to have it happen more than once. But anyway, getting back to the story. She sat down opposite me, and there was this incredible chemistry. It was just, wow. It took me an hour to open her bank account. And it was because we were talking. We weren't opening the bank account. And eventually she got up and she left. And I went around to the accountant, my good mate Eddie Sherwood, and I said to Eddie, I've just met the most amazing woman. Is it okay if I phone her up and ask her for a date? Because she used to work at the old Masonite store, or Masonite factory in Estcourt. And Eddie said to me, mate, if you do that and she complains, you've lost your job. So I suggest you don't do that. So I was really upset about this, and I was waiting for her to come in and she didn't come in. And at that time we were selling third parties. There's little regos for the cars, and people would be coming in the whole day long, and I'd fill out their details and give them their third party, and etc., etc. And on this particular day, this is about 2 weeks after I'd opened the bank account for this lady, I went out for lunch, and I came back 20 minutes early for no particular reason at all. And when I walked in, I saw her sitting right outside my cubicle on a chair just waiting for me. So I said, "Hi, how are you? Come on in," and she came and sat down in the cubicle. And as I was going through the door to go into the back part of the bank, Eddie came up to me and he said, "Scotty, she came in just after you went for lunch." And I said, "Look, I'm happy to do your third party." And she said, No, I'll wait for Scott." He said, "Mate, you're onto a good thing here." So the long and the short of it was, we organized the third party, and I invited her out for dinner that night, and we had the most amazing time. But that's when I was in my early 20s, and I've got totally distracted from the subject, but I like to share little personal things with my subscribers, because you'll think back on things like this that have happened in your life. And anyway, let's get back to the story. And the story is about Masonite, which was a very big employer in Estcourt. And Delise, which was her name, she actually used to work, as I said, at Masonite. Now, Everwood, formerly known as Masonite, a company that has been manufacturing locally since 1942 and abroad in recent years, and one of the biggest hardboard makers in the Southern Hemisphere, has been placed in voluntary liquidation by the Companies and Intellectual Property Commission, or CIPC. And what you'll notice here is that this company is just another victim of this policy of BBBEE and BEE. But it was a huge employer in Estcourt. Everwood director Nkosinathi Ntshlangelala said yesterday that the Estcourt-based mill, which provided products to a range of construction-related markets, ceased operations earlier this month after having consulted staff. It was the town's biggest employer. The closure resulted in the loss of 460 permanent jobs as well as temporary jobs. He said the company, which had been placed in business rescue by its international parent company in December 2015, initially had a promising future. It was acquired by the Timber Investment One consortium, which was eager to implement a business turnaround strategy based on a 300 million rand cash injection. Now, don't you love this turnaround strategy that they always talk about? Never ever happens. That's what they're always talking about with state-owned enterprises. They've got a turnaround strategy. And you know what that is? That's a load of BS. Anyway, getting back to the situation here with Masonite. This is so sad. However, in February 2017, the company endured a protracted illegal strike, which led to lost production time and damage to the plant and resulted in uncertainty among Everwood's customers. Ntshlangelala said this was compounded by economic turbulence in the country that impacted heavily on the construction industry, which accounted for the bulk of the company's business. This and the time needed to rebuild the confidence of our customers who had begun looking for alternative supplies provided an opportunity for cheap imports to flood the South African market. This prolonged the turnaround phase, he said. These factors resulted in the withdrawal of the international funding that was urgently needed by the struggling business, he said. Operating any business in the current South African climate was challenging, particularly when there were low levels of global confidence and there was no protection for manufacturing companies against import competition, he said. At a time when the government is calling for industrialization and job creation, it is sad to see the demise of one of the largest hardboard mills in the Southern Hemisphere. He said Everwood had never really recovered from the substantial losses incurred during the strike, and despite having brought in international engineers to attempt to repair equipment that was old and regularly breaking down, it was unable to ensure continuity of supply. Some 78 million rand was spent attempting to repair and maintain machinery and rebuild the mill. However, much of the equipment was old and unreliable. By June 2018, this had cut capacity by 50%. Ntshlangelala said provisional liquidators would be appointed by the Master of the High Court in due course. So this is happening around South Africa the whole time, and I had to tell the story about Masonite because of my personal contact from the past with someone who is very special in my history, my early history. All right, guys, please remember to subscribe to be kept up to date. Ring the bell for every update, and have a great evening.